Hey YouTube, what if I told you that you could pick up this kind of junk on one particular pass through a workshop farm, and also too, coffee, and guns and bullets, bags, and more. Stay tuned, I'll show you how I do it.
Welcome to the channel. This is Spyplane, and in today's video, I'd like to talk to you about my Fallout 76 workshop farming method. This is my first ever Fallout 76 video. I bought the game last October, and I enjoyed it. Put a lot of time in the game. There's so much to do. But I'll tell you what, one thing's for certain is that when I first got the game, I was overwhelmed with everything about it. Just learning the game in general, starting off from scratch without any resources was very challenging as a new player. So hopefully for you new players out there that are watching this in 2026, this will help you maximize your time farming resources. For the veterans out there, if there's anything that I can do better, please let me know because I'm all about improving or enhancing my gameplay when it comes to farming resources. So without further ado, let's go. My method incorporates what I call a floating farm technique. After capturing the workshop, I'll use a blueprint. Place a building high up in the air, usually above structure and away from, you know, clear open areas where enemies can shoot at the walls. The floors, I've always noticed, never taken damage, so I believe they're invincible, but the walls are not. I have experimented with different blueprint styles, different shapes and sizes of the buildings. Started off with the 1x2. I now run with the standard 2x2 building. Um, you know, um, which I'll show you in the video here later. I've also placed resource machines within the building and creating a blueprint for that, but I've often found that when placing that, the machines just get scattered. It's chaotic. I mean, especially if they're like clipped into a wall or each other. Sometimes they've either disappeared or, just generated on top of the ceiling. I find it easier for me to just place the blueprint down and just manually, place all the machines down because that gives me an opportunity to be more flexible about what I want to grab out of these farms. It all depends on really the time and how much, resources or what I need to collect, but I'm always going after junk, coffee, not always going after food like, beverages or, birthday cake or, the pumpkin pies, but always going after things like the vending machine items and the magazines and junk out of like the collectrons, the shredders. In fact, one of the things I did early on after I first bought the coffee machine through the bullion shop was just collect as much as I could because that is what got me propelled in the game. I probably farmed at least 50,000 coffee or more since I bought the game in last October. In fact, during my Christmas and New Year's break, I had about 3 weeks off. I started selling so much coffee that I had customers coming to me ordering coffee that I would just go out and do 500 here and 1,000 or 2,000 there just to sell to particular customers. Back then, I was selling at 20 to 1 liters, and recently, I think the going rate for coffee is down to 10 to 1. I've even seen it 8 to 1, and sometimes people are offering 4 or 5 to 1 per liter for coffee. So this has made me so much leader bobbleheads. It got me started to begin with, enabling me to purchase gear, mods to just start my gameplay. A lot of these producers were purchased through the Adams shop from Seasonal Progression and others through Gold Bullion. Nice thing about purchasing them through the Adams shop is they're able to be used on all characters versus the Bullion. They're only allowed, I believe, to be only used on the character that bought it. So keep that in mind. One of the resource machines that I don't have right now, and my friends give me so much crap for this, but it's the concrete mixer. I haven't got that yet, but hopefully one day they'll put that back in the Adams shop, and I'm definitely saving some Adams for that. Okay. Some things to consider, obviously, is I'm a Fallout First subscriber, and I do this mostly on a private server. I wasn't always a subscriber. In fact, when I first started, I played all my gameplay on public servers. Every once in a while, I go to a friend's private server and play there, but I've farmed these workshops on public servers before. It's a little bit of a challenge because once you take over a workshop, they're fair game. Even if you place down the resource machines, they can get picked, even if they're locked. So for me to maximize my time, I just do it on a private server, folks. Again, you don't have to. I play still on public servers a lot. Doing events. I'll go out and raid, help new people level up, give away a lot of free stuff. So again, this can be done on a public server. Setup's going to take some time, so it just depends on how much time you have in the day. It could take up to about an hour, hour and a half for me to capture all 22 workshops. But say, for example, if I get home from work and I have like an hour or two of time to play, I'll usually only capture about 4 or 5 of these workshops. And specific ones, obviously, you can target farm for items like nuke materials or concrete scrap or aluminum, etc. But if I'm farming on a day off, I'm usually going after all of them. I mentioned earlier about the blueprints. I'm using those to help kind of expedite my setup time so you don't have to sit there and build the whole structure of the building. And it also contend with putting down a blueprint that might spread all your machines into chaos. Okay. Resources are going to take some time to soak, folks. Even if you put a collector down on the ground at these locations, or if you put a machine down in your floating farm, they're going to take some time to soak. Thankfully for me, most of the items I go after usually take about 10 minutes to collect one resource, like coffee. And, some of these machines unfortunately can't hold as much of the resources as you wish. Like the coffee machine, for example, can only hold 4 canned coffee. So in theory, it takes about 40 minutes to fully stock a coffee machine of coffee. And that's usually kind of how I base my time strategies and when I begin my route. And I'll talk about that here on the route map. Vending machines also have a restock time. So the vending machines, regardless if they're the sodas or the chem or ammo machines, I believe do take some time to restock. Imagine if you can just go into these vending machines and just spend all your caps on soda, for example. That would be, I think, broken. But again, it usually takes about 5 minutes for these vending machines to restock. So I place these strategically throughout my farm. Uh, Hopefully, uh, in locations to where I've already, farmed to where the cooldown time's met so I could pick the soda out of these machines. Now, when you take over a workshop, one of the first things that happens is you're going to get an event that will tell you to defend the workshop. Okay, they're not just going to let you have this workshop, and even on a private server, you have to defend it and maybe recapture them over time if they've been captured or not. It just depends on what's going on. For example, if you capture a workshop, and let's just say that after you set up your farm and before you go on to the next one, you get the event notification that's going to be attacked and they're like, you know, mole rats or hounds. They're not going to be able to damage your building when it's floating in the air, like say robots or scorched or the mutants would that are shooting at you. So, I usually will not defend, and ideal condition would be a hound or mole rat because they're not going to be able to attack. They'll just sit around there walking around the ground, and they won't know what to do. Um, so I won't even mess with them. I'll leave it alone. I'll usually just cancel out the event notification from my Pip-Boy and just move on. However, when it comes to the robots and other enemies that can shoot, I will basically take them out, especially the Liberators, because they do a lot of damage. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to build your farm and then proceed to the next one, and by the time that everything is soaked, go back, only realize that the farm is destroyed and nothing actually collected for you to, nothing was soaking for you to collect. So it just depends, okay, on whether or not you will defend. Now, damage will occur even if you defend or not defend. When you leave the place, it's just going to happen, folks. You just have to get over that, okay? You'll just have to repair it, and a lot of times when I'm collecting my resources, that's usually where I spend most of my time, is just repairing any of the damage that was taken in my absence. Just deal with it, folks, okay? Things that are out of your control, though, like the server maintenance and drops, we've all seen this one here, folks. If you're like me, one of the most frustrating things that I cannot stand is the shutdown imminent notification. Please join another world. This world will be undergoing maintenance soon. I try to start a fresh server every time I get into a private server. Obviously, you can't avoid this when you're in the publics, but I've gotten lucky to where I can get into a fresh server and basically farm for like 8 to 10 hours before I get shut down and kicked out. Other times I'll get in and I'll have like an hour or two. Very frustrating after you spent 1 to 1.5 hours collecting the resource or capturing the farms to only having like an hour or so to collect on. So nothing's really soaking. It just wastes a lot of time. As a Fallout First subscriber, you would think that, by being on a fresh server, you'd have more time to play on a dedicated server, but it's not always the case, even for us subscribers. So we've all seen this one here too, the waiting response from server. I think one of the things that I was challenged with in the recent update was just the server drops were just unbearable. Thankfully, though, with server drops, you can transfer back to a private server if it's still there, so long as it states that the world was found. But if you go back into your server and you see building world, you've completely lost your private server, folks. One of the things you can't really do in a public server unless you're on a team and you're able to join that server again after you've dropped. So that's one advantage of having a Fallout First private server subscription. Now, transferring in and out of the server is another thing you can also do as well. These resources, aside from like your junk, for me, obviously, the junk is in an unlimited stash box, but the coffees, the beverages and the foods do weigh a lot, and they will consume a lot of space in your stash, especially for folks who aren't first subscribers. So that's where I will take advantage of a private server, and with or without the help of a friend, it's a huge risk. Transfer materials to mules. In fact, I've got a coffee mule that I created due to how lucrative the coffee industry was for me early on. I had at one point probably 10 or 12,000 coffee stored on this mule that I would transfer back and forth between my private server. So with that said, the only downside to transferring in and out of your server while your workbenches are active and soaking is that you do lose your fast travel icon on the map, but you can reestablish those once you get close to those locations after getting back into your private server world. So yeah, there's that benefit of transferring between your meals while you're farming. Special note about the vending machines. I target farm Sunset Sarsaparilla because it's just one of the things I use. All these sodas give you a ballistic gun damage buff. Kind of instrumental for me when I'm doing raids, but they are camp and workshop placeable. They'll set you back 15 caps, unfortunately, but you do get one cap back from this soda when you drink it, with some healing and thirst quenching as well. I mentioned earlier about the 5-minute cooldown. You can't get around that, so that's why I strategically place these in locations to where hopefully by the time I get there, the cooldown's been met. Three types of sodas, folks, that I get from here, and they are the Sunset Sarsaparilla, the Irradiated Sunset Sarsaparilla, and the Star Size Sunset Sarsaparilla. The Sunset and Irradiated versions give you a 45% chance to drop with the 5% ballistic gun damage buff, but also the Irradiated one gives you 10 rads. Now the one that's really cool is the star-sized one. It gives you 10% ballistic gun damage for 10 minutes, but it's a lot lower spawn chance rate when you get to the machine. On to the farming route, and this just varies. It depends on how much time I have in the evening to play or the day. For example, if I get home from work and I only have like an hour or two to play, I'm usually only going after like 4 or 5 workshops. And there's nights where I'll just play the game where I won't go after any workshops, folks. I just don't sit here and farm every day, but I try to maximize my time when I play the game to at least collect some resources. Um, on days where I'm off, though, I typically almost always go after all 22 workshops, especially if I'm, collecting coffee for my coffee buyers. I try to keep at least 500 to 1,000 coffee on hand for those folks that just DM me last minute and say, "Hey, Spy, you got 300 coffee or 500 coffee I can buy from you now?" Instead of waiting like at the end of the week for me to deliver. So yeah, there's those things that I kind of contend with. But for the most part, I try to keep at least some coffee on hand. Now, running this route, it can take me anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes, and that just depends on what's going on when you run this route. For example, if there's damage you got to repair, it's going to take some time. If you have to kind of clear out some enemies that are causing damage to your workshop, that'll also take some time too. And there's also too, if there's enemies in your presence that aren't aggroed on you, I've noticed that there's usually a 15-second fast travel delay timer incorporated into your transit. Just that's going to add to your wait as well. Imagine if you had to wait 15 seconds to fast travel between 22 workshops. That's more than 5 minutes of time spent in farming the route. So typically what I do is when I start off, I usually start off at Gorge Junkyard, and I'll have a vendor there, so that immediately starts the cool down cycle for my machine in my strategically placed workshop. Immediately when I start this farm, I start a stopwatch on my phone so I know how long it took me to run the route. So that therefore, after I'm done, I can, estimate how much time I have to do other activities before I have to go back in and collect again. Uh, the resources that I typically go after take about 10 minutes to spawn, and primarily like the coffee, for example, in the machine can only hold 4 canned coffee, so it needs about 40 minutes to fully soak in the machine before I go back around. So therefore, if it took me on average of 20 minutes to run the route, I have 20 minutes to kind of sit around and do other things like raiding or activities or events or building, or just kind of sitting around and just chilling at the base watching YouTube videos before I begin my next route. Okay, trying to maximize that downtime is very key here, especially when I'm trying to collect the resources efficiently. From there, though, and this is just my route, folks. I go to the next stop here, which is Sunshine Meadows. And by the way, Gorge Junkyard does have a titanium and a concrete scrap node, and Sunshine Metals has a concrete node that I sometimes go after. Not often, but sometimes. It's very rare. There's also a food factory there at Sunshine Metals too, but I don't go after that no more because typically the food I, collect is done with producers anyways, within the machines. Starlight Drive-In's the next place that I go to, and then I stop off at Tyler County Dirt Track. Over to Hemlock Holes Maintenance, onto Grafton Steel, Monongah Power Plant. There's 3 power plants in the game that have fusion core generators or producers. Unfortunately, they can only hold 3 in their machines, so, if you run this route at least twice an hour, there's 9 fusion cores. I typically grab more for my rating than I do in these, so I usually don't take the time to set them up. They require 100 power to power up those fusion core producers as well, which is a waste in my opinion in resources. And also too, they're exposed to the ground, which can lead to them getting damaged and not collecting at all. So to me, I don't go after fusion cores much. I don't really wear power armor unless I'm doing guardian farming, but again, fusion cores is not a resource that I really need right now. Onto the munitions factory. I used to go there early on to power up the munitions factory to collect ammo, but it wasn't really effective or efficient. Now I can just produce more of that or actually collect it from raids. So, but onto the Red Rocket Mega Stop, and this is one of the places there, or Thunder Mountain Power Plant, where I'll place another vending machine, because typically when I close this loop on these first 10 workshops is where I'll be at around the 5-minute point. I placed them back to back just because if I get to, say, Red Rocket too soon, hopefully I can get to the Thunder Mountain Power Plant in time after the cool-off's expired. By the way, folks, if I get to a workshop and the machine is not cooled down, I'm not sitting there and waiting for it to cool down. I'm just going to move on because that's really not my priority. Yeah, you could technically place the vending machine in all of these workshops, which I think would be kind of inefficient in my opinion, but for what it's worth, you can always collect soda at your camp every 5 minutes or at other locations throughout the map as well. From there, I go over to the Dolly Sods Campground, and then on to Berkeley Springs West. Now, on a typical day where I have, say, 3-4 hours to play, or less than 5 hours, I'll usually capture these 12 right there. This is kind of what I consider like my halfway point. I've averaged, anywhere between 35, 40 minutes, maybe 50 minutes tops to capture these. You know, and I'll usually stop right there because this kind of is all the workshops on the top half of the map. And, I can pretty much travel to these real quickly to collect all these resources. But if I'm going full day, all 22, then the next place I go to is the Lakeside Cabins, followed by Wade Airport, and then, of course, Poseidon Energy Plant and the Billings Homestead. Billings and Charleston Landfill is where I'll place my next vending machine. Again, this is just assuming that by the time I get there, the cool down period has been met. Oftentimes, I'll place one in Mount Blair as well, but again, folks, it just all depends on how fast or slow it takes you to go through this route. Beckley Mine Exhibit, over to the Federal Deposit Field or Disposal Field, onto Abandoned Bogtown and Dabney Homestead, I'll usually place one there because it's the last one before I head back to my camp. And that's pretty much my route. Again, it's all just depends on what you're doing. Tailor this to your needs, your pattern. For me, this is kind of the pattern I've memorized over the course of my time playing the game. It makes it really easy for me to follow.
Alright, so on to the blueprint. I'm over here at Hemlock Hole's maintenance. I've captured the workshop, and I'll go ahead and start placing my floating farm down. Now, I've got a pre-made blueprint made already with my 2x2 farm. It's just a wood construction with a missing floor. I'll show you how I make this blueprint. It's really not that hard, folks. You've already seen this before, probably. For the new folks who haven't, though, it's really not that it's not that hard to make blueprints. Thing is, though, is that you have to make it first. So we'll start off with the floor. Again, trying to keep this as cheap as possible. Okay, I like to just as a technique filter out the buildable menu in the workshop, or sorry, the camp build menu. So that way it eliminates all the things you're not able to build. Just helps you navigate the menu faster. So place down the floor. We'll just make this a 2x2 real quick. I'll try to do this in free mode. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. Got the floor down. And now usually what I'll do is right here we'll just build a porch followed by a door to get in and out of. Tell you what, there we go, perfect. Alright, let's find that door. Keep it cheap. Cool. Let's just wall ourselves in. Okay. No windows either, just kind of keeping it real simple. Full walls and a roof. Now in this one corner, we're going to do half walls. Oh, followed by a kind of a half floor. And we'll put the roof on. Doesn't have to be perfect, just get it down, okay? And then lastly, don't forget, I've done this before, don't forget to put down your fast travel mat because that makes it easier for you to spawn back to. It will be under the decorations and rugs. And if you point it this way so you could read the welcome sign, that's the direction you'll spawn into the building. Now, I delete this floor right here. And then now to build the blueprint, you'll have to select the blueprint option. Might be different on mouse and keyboard. I'm on controller, so for me it's there. Now I'll just hit the A button to select the item. See how I put my cursor on an item? It highlights it like a blue. So what you have to do is kind of make sure you get all of the items highlighted. I like to start off with the walls so I know I'm doing the walls here. I get that front porch first, followed by the door frame, and all the walls. Oop. Get that. You see on the blueprint budget bar at the top there, if you see it go down, that means you've deselected something from your blueprint budget. If you select it again and it increases, that means you've got it selected and activated in your blueprint. Sometimes it is a challenge to work around the fast travel map because it has a pretty big hitbox, if you will. There we go. And then you just basically, for me, hit X to create a blueprint, and I'm going to save this. You can name this 2x2 floating farm. And now you've got a blueprint saved. To access that, under the history, blueprinted menu, there is your newly created blueprint. So That's creating a blueprint. So let's just say you already got a blueprint created. I'm going to delete this here. And we're getting attacked. Sounds like a bear. Nope, not a bear. These guys you definitely want to kill because they'll wreak havoc on your place. They've got like a little attack they do. So anglers. Alright, so for Hemlock, where I usually place my blueprint is just kind of right here above this trailer. I've experimented with placing it on top of that roof line there. I found that by doing that, enemies along the hill that spawn in have a really good angle at shooting the building. So for me, I place it kind of right here and high as possible. So we've built our blueprint. To place a blueprint, you go into your build menu. Under the build menu, under history, blueprinted, and select the blueprint you want to put down. There's my floating farm one that we just built. Obviously all your blueprints will be stored right here. So once you get it situated, you see how the blueprint then becomes active. If I try to place it too high or out of bounds, it will basically be red. Okay, so I like to keep that as high as possible and in a location to where I can get into it. Once I place it, I just fly up to it, see? Once I get inside, I close off the floor and just start placing my items. Now, I've experimented with putting down my resource machines and generators in here with the blueprint and blueprinting it all. I found that by placing them, sometimes the items are, either they're disappeared or they'll get relocated to like the roof or outside of the building. It just is sheer chaos. For me, it's easier to place everything down manually. So I always start off with the Collectron right underneath this corner of this half shelf. It just depends on what I'm target farming for as far as which Collectron I use. You could use, if you're doing multiple farms, different Collectrons as well to target farm different items from these machines. But for me right now, I'm doing the police Collectron. At the end of the video, I'll kind of show you an example of what it would look like with the Christmas gifts. This Santatron is one of my first ones that I purchased with Adams last year when I bought the game. And I was able to farm a lot of ammo with these Christmas gifts using this workshop method. I took a video of this last year, and I meant to make this video last year, but I never had a chance to. But I think I picked up around like, I don't know, on my 3 weeks off from Christmas and New Year's last fall, somewhere between like 50 to 70,000 ammo just from farming Christmas gifts and opening them up on my Elder's Mark. So back then I didn't have much of a resource pool to craft or produce ammo, and I wasn't doing many farms or raids, so I wasn't leeching ammo off of the raid bosses or the daily ops, so I was collecting ammo from those gifts. But today we're going to place down the police Collectron, place it right there, and then from there I'm going to look for the rocker box, place it in the corner. Doesn't have to be neat, folks, but keep in mind you want to try to keep as much of it inside the building as possible, because if it does get exposed like that, then it just becomes a target outside. So if they do shoot that, they can destroy this, eventually they'll destroy the wall if they want to, but this minimizes the damage to the machines themselves. Obviously the intent would have been placing this before the Collectron got there, but we can fix that by getting rid of him and placing him back, so that way I can put the rocker box down. There we go. Now the shredder I just picked up here recently. This is huge. I love the fact that it gives away guns and bullets and other junk that breaks down into screws and gears. Problem with the shredder in the workshop is, and I'll show you here in a second, when you place this at your camp, as long as there's power at your camp, it'll get power. This doesn't have a coupling or power connector. It just gets area power somehow. But in a workshop, it does not. So to circumnavigate that, I put down a power connector on there and just connect a wire to a generator, and that'll help you out with that. World Wizard, place it right next to the Collectron. By the way, that thing usually puts out enough paint cans per hour to produce close to, if not more than 1,000 lead when I break down that scrap. So that World Wizard is definitely worth its weight in gold. I no longer have to farm lead anymore because of that resource. This coffee machine is basically where it all started. I always put this down, and I put it right there. Also, too, if I'm, going after other foods, which I'm not today, but I'll show you where I place the company tea machine and the birthday cake right there next to the coffee machine. So um, then I look for the there it is right there, the butter churner, and place this under manual free placement underneath the shelf next to the Collectron. It fits really well right there, by the way. And going back looking for the butterfly sanctuary, and this also fits kind of nicely in the corner there too, in free mode. It is morphed into or blended into the shelf, not a big deal. As long as you can put your cursor here or there on the butter machine, you could pick the items out from that. Then I place my generators. The generators are going to go on top of this shelf, and I usually do two. But today we're going to put down three, and I'll explain why once I place all the items down. Each of these produce 5 power. Typically on a normal day when I'm putting down the butter churner, the Whirl Wizard, and lastly, you see how this is not powered, but it will be powered once you hook up the wire. These 3 items each require 3 power, which comes out to 9 total power. Each of these produce 5, which is 10. Then if you add a popcorn machine, which I typically place over here, that's an additional 3 power. Hence why I place 3 generators when I'm doing all the food sources. So popcorn machine, you can just kind of morph in right there. Don't forget to hook that up to power. And then you've got popcorn as well. On the top shelf of where the generators go is where I kind of morph in the nodding donkey. It fits really nice right there. I try to keep that circular gear exposed so I can target my cursor on that to pick when I'm farming. And then over in the left of the back corner here is where I place the counterfeit bottle cap machine. Next to it I placed a data center for circuitry and stuff. And then next to it I place the game cupboard. This is where I put the curio. And then for the crash cargo bot, I go in the free camera mode, spin it around, and basically just kind of, blend it into the building. I clip it into where I can touch the dirt. It's a little far away. And by blending it into the building like that, or clipping it into the building, it allows for me to pick the resource from within inside the building versus having to go outside and collect it from outside. It's a rather annoying piece because it's such a large resource that takes up a lot of space. But when I'm planting that back at the camp, I usually submerge it into the foundation or floor. So, and then lastly, this is going to be one of those places. If I wanted to place a vending machine, you could do that, and I usually place that in the corner. And I don't think hemlock holes is typically where I place a vending machine. But if you wanted to, you could put it. I put it right there, and I usually pick a bottle soda from that. And lastly, if I'm looking after more food, I've got the pumpkin pie collector right here. And, that's pretty much, I think, everything I can place that I want. You can put, if you want, the beer and Nuka-Cola producers. I usually don't. Don't go after the Nuka-Cola Kenny at all. Let's see if we can find a place for this. Yeah, you can put that right there if you want. So again, tailor this workshop farm to your needs. Oh look, there's a pemmican collector we could put. Hard to place that. I'll probably put it in a free mode and kind of I'll probably grab that and maybe lift it up a little bit. Kind of get it out of the way of the floor. There we go. Make sure I can get everything. You know, like if I can't get to something, I'm gonna move things around. There's the Collectron. So fast forward to when I'm picking stuff up, I spawn in. First thing I go for is the coffee, tea, cake, and then there, all through this little area here, picking up the oil, Collectron materials, hit the dirt for the cargo bot, shredder, here and here for the popcorn and ore, right there for the nodding donkey, the acid, game circuitry, bottle cap stuff, and curio, pop the Nuka-Cola machine and the vending machine, and I've just picked everything up in real quick succession. Okay, that's it for the farm, folks. It's really, this is kind of a full bore everything. If it's a small day, just, no food, I'm not going to have the pemmican, pumpkin, company tea, or cake down. I'm just going to have the coffee and the Whirl Wizard right there. So.
Alrighty, folks. And in conclusion, I just want to thank you for visiting the page. And if you made it this far, you guys know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment. This is just a hobby of mine. If it helped you, cool. If there's anything that I can learn, let me know in the comment section below. But I enjoy playing the game. Hopefully, I'll be able to push out more content like this to make your life easier. But again, enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Thanks for the visit and take care.